everyone, and welcome to the Williamson County Sports Connection. I'm Jack Daniels, your host, and thank you for joining us for Football 101. This is our third show in a series of shows about the basics of football. In our last show, we talked about the 8 different teams involved in a football game. We talked mainly about offense and the different formations, the numbering system, and also the player personnel. I left out screens, and that was a very big part of my offensive game, so I'm going to talk about screens before I get into defense and special teams today. So in screens, a screen is when you throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Now, when you do that, there's no such thing as pass interference. A defensive team can come out and they can knock that gym tire out of your receiver before the ball gets there and not throw a flag because it's behind the line of scrimmage. If the ball is thrown down the field, then it gets into a play in which would become pass interference if they make contact before the receiver touches the ball. But in a screen, you don't do that. But what it allows you to do, it allows your offensive lineman to move. Remember now, the ball, where the ball is the line of scrimmage. In this area, and I'm going over this now, it's called a neutral zone. A neutral zone is from the center out and either side of him in that neutral zone. 3 yards this way, 4 yards this way. Usually it's 1 yard outside this tackle. Anything goes, meaning that you can hit the guy low, you can hit the guy in his back. There's no such thing as clipping in this neutral zone. The only play that comes into play would be the chop block. A chop block is if the offensive lineman engages a defensive lineman and then another offensive lineman comes and chops at his knees or below. That's a chop block. That's a 15-yard penalty. But other than that, anything kind of goes in that neutral zone. Well, if it is a pass down the field, the linemen have to stay in the neutral zone or behind the ball. But when you throw a screen, the lineman can go downfield and be downfield blocking. Now, we did this. I called my screens by colors. Green, blue went to the left, green went to the right, black and red, red and black. Now, if I threw a screen up here in the middle, I called it missile. Missile was right up the gut. And we would tag these guys, each had a letter that we gave them, and we would tag them on which one we was going to throw the ball to. So if this guy here, I'm just going to give you an example. If he was our Z, and we ran green Z, then this guy is going to be blocking his man along with this tackle would be moving to block, this guard moving to block, and this center moving to block. They could be downfield blocking the secondary. We want to let the defensive lineman rush the quarterback. The quarterback can make a fake to the running back or just get up and throw the ball. He's got to be behind the line of scrimmage. He's got to back up, catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage. And that's what a screen is. So the lineman can be downfield blocking. We've got to catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage. It's a legal play. It's a very effective play if you throw the football a lot because you try to slow down the rush of the defensive lineman. This is probably one of my #1 plays, especially probably the last, 15 years since I come to Middle Tennessee. While I was at Brentwood, Ravenwood, Page, all those teams, we had to be real good at running screens. Now, there's a lot more to offense than just what I covered today and in the last show. But, hopefully you got a little bit of a base about offense. You know who the players are. You kind of know how they line up. And you know a little bit about personnel groupings. We're going to go to defense. Defense, Now, I'm only going to talk about two. Not because I don't know a whole lot about defense. Being a head coach at the high school level, you really need to know about all sides of the football. You need to know about every position. So as you go and learn the game, as you study the game, you got to be able to, in high school, you got to be able to coach your coaches to get them to do what you want to do. So we're going to talk about the base 4-3 defense and how the defense calls the line of scrimmage. So let's look at this. Get this offensive stuff off the board. Get in here where we can talk a little defense. Now I'm going to put an offense up. And I'm going to go to the old I formation. Now we're going to defense that. Defensive end. Defensive tackle. Defensive tackle. Defensive end. Linebacker. 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 This is a 4-3 defense. 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. That leaves you 4 secondary people. 4 people in the secondary. So you could have, let's start with a cover 2. You could have a corner, a free safety, a strong safety, and another corner. Now, why I said this is a strong safety versus the free safety. The strong safety usually lines up to the tight end side. Usually. Now, today's terminology has changed. They call these safeties different people. They call them boundary safeties and field safeties. Meaning, and here, I'm going to put a smaller football field in here for you. All right? That's a small field. If the ball is on this hash, this is the field. If I'm the field safety, I'm going to be playing on that side of the field. The boundary. If I'm the boundary safety, I'm going to be playing closer to the boundary. All right? So some coaches name them that way. Now, a defense plays, for the most part, on gap control. So they don't call it 2-4-6, 3-5-7. They don't call it that way. They call it by letters. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the defense off and show you how they call it. The gap between the center and the guard is an A gap. The gap between the guard and the tackle is the B gap. The gap between the tackle and tight end is a C gap. Anything outside that tight end is the D gap. We have an imaginary tight end here. That would be the C gap. And the D gap on the outside. So, if I'm playing gap responsibility, there's certain techniques on the 4-3 that these defensive players have to know and which gap they're responsible for. So, as I go back to here and I start putting these positions in, if I have no tight end, I'm the defensive end, I play a 5 technique. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Hold on right there. I'm going to start and really give you some good stuff right here. All right? I'm going to put one big old player right here. We're going to say this is the right guard. Could be the right guard or the left guard. Here's the center. Right there. There's where the ball's at. Technique for a defense. You take his shoulder closer to the center. That's a 1 technique. that tells that defensive tackle where to line up on that right guard. You give him a 1 technique, he's going to line up on his inside shoulder. You give him a 2 technique, he lines up, head up on that right guard. You give him a 3 technique, he lines up on his outside shoulder, which is his right shoulder. You line up on his outside shoulder, that's a 3 technique. Now, from these techniques, it tells you which gap you're responsible for the most part. If I have a 1 technique, I'm responsible for a gap. If I have a 3 technique, I'm responsible for a B gap. If I have a 2 technique, a lot of times, that means they have a stunt coming. That means that the linebacker is going to be blitzing, or I'm going to be moving as the ball snapped. From a 2, I can move to a 1, or I can move to a 3 at the snap of the ball to my gap control, because a linebacker would be stepping opposite of me. All right? So now what I've showed you on the right side is the same to the left side. I'm going out here and putting an offensive tackle. Here's the tackle. His inside shoulder, that's called a 4-eye. Head up with the tackle, it's called a 4. His outside shoulder is called a 5. So if I lined up in a 5, I have C gap. If I have a 4-eye, I have B gap. What you wouldn't do, you wouldn't put a 3 here and a 4-eye here on your other defensive personnel, because it would give them both the same gap. So you got to know how they line up. All right, tight end. Tight end. Inside is a 7. I use 6 and 8 for head up. Outside is a 9. Now, this is how I used to call some defense. 631. 631 would be to the strength side, tight end side. That tells my defensive end to line up in a 6 technique. Giving him a 6 means that he has the inside C gap. If I gave him 831 as a call, 8 means he's got the D gap on the outside. All right, I'm head up, but that's telling him where to go by giving him that number. Of course, a 9, you know, has a D gap, and a 7 technique always has the C gap. He lines up on the inside shoulder of a tight end. So if I said 631, it tells this guy, the defensive end, where to line up. It tells the right guard where he's going to be lined up, the defensive tackle. He's going to be in a 3 technique. The backside guy is going to be in a 1 technique. He's going to line up on the inside. So he has A gap here. This guy's got B gap. He's got C gap. That means I'm going to take a safety, bring him up for the D gap, or I'm going to use the corner for the D gap. On the backside, defensive tackle's got the A gap. There will be another lineman over here. Let me just shorten this down for you guys. Get the backside in here. We got a wide out here. Remember, I have a defensive end here. He's on a 5 technique. Here's the defensive tackle. He's on a 1 technique. Here's a 5 and a 1. All right. So this defensive tackle has got that A gap. Defensive end has got the C gap. And he can move all the way out to the D gap with help. That means there's going to be a linebacker in here that's going to have the B gap responsibility. All right? Well, on the other side, I didn't have the A gap covered, so that means there's a linebacker here that's got the A gap covered. Every gap has to be covered on the defense. In a 4-3, that means you have 4 down linemen, 4 linemen, hands on the ground. All right? 3 linebackers, 4 guys in the secondary. Now, different coverages. I'm going to take the lineman out, and we're going to talk about the secondary. So I'm going to put a ball in here. I'm going to put some wide receivers. There we go. Quarterback, and there will be a running back in here. And we got a tight end. So that guy's off the ball. All right. 2 receivers to the defensive left side, to offensive right side. 2 receivers opposite. Tight end would be called the strong side. All right. So that strong safety is going to be playing over that tight end. Cover 2, corner, free safety. Now here's the basis of cover 2. Basis of cover 2. In cover 2, it's a coverage which is called, and it kind of goes along with cover 4. 2 and 4 kind of go along together. But in cover 2, if we play a hard 2, that means these corners are going to sit. They're going to read, everybody's going to read the number 2 receiver. And you're going to see where he goes. But their job is, do not let this guy, do not let him come outside you. You got to make him come to the inside of you. You're going to push him to the free safety so the free safety can cover him. That's what cover 2 means. The corner's got to push. Don't let that guy go outside you. Stay on his outside shoulder and push him to the inside. Same thing over here. Push this guy to the inside. Then that means he's going to be responsible. This corner has got the 12-yard flat to the ball. Means if the run play comes this side, you're up, you're helping with the D gap, all right, and you're going to help make a play up here on that side. That's a cover 2. All right, cover 3. These are basics now, just basics. If we're going to run a cover 3 against this particular formation, the corner is going to back off. He's going to come inside. The free safety is going to move over a little bit. He'll look for help with the tight end on a vertical. Strong safety will be there 1 yard outside. Safety, the corner will be on about 7 yards off the ball. This defensive end, most likely, he'll be in a 6. He'll be hitting that tight end, so the tight end can't run vertical. The strong safety will have to jump him if he does. But normally, the safety is going to have the flat. This guy here is going to have 1/3 of the field. This is cover 3. He'll have 1/3 of the field. He'll have 1/3 of the field. Now, what's bad is this guy right here, this cat right here. In order to get him covered, we got to take one of these linebackers. We got to move him over a little bit. We got to bump him out to slow this guy down from going vertical because there's an opening in that area. All right, so he usually bumps out a little bit to help take away from that quick seam route, and he can also run to the flat. They used to call it buzz to the flat if something was thrown out here early to the flat side. And that would be a cover 3 for the secondary. So you can move these guys around. Cover 4, usually, a lot of teams run this now, and it's real simple. Kind of got 4 going across the top. Everybody's got a 1/4 of the field. Now, if you remember from show 1, how wide is the field? It's 53 yards, 12 inches, 160 feet. You divide that by 4. That's how much yardage each one of these guys has got to cover, and you tell them, nobody gets behind you. Nobody. In cover 4. They can't do it. They can't do it in cover 3 when I've got a 1/3 of the field. A 1/3 of the field was easy. A 1/3 of the field, we knew that. It's 53 feet and 4 inches. All the way down the field, nobody gets behind me in that kind of coverage. All right? So, that was a cover 4. So nobody, it's good for keeping passes underneath you and then coming up and making a tackle. Your linebackers, they're going to go to the curls in the middle of the field and to the outside. Your 3 linebackers. So what are you giving up? You're giving up the flats. It's okay. We're going to run up there and make the tackle. Linebacker's going to bust to the flat. Corner's going to come up and help make the tackle. He ain't going to let him get outside of him. All right. Next. Defense. What a great game. Now this is what you see teams running now. This 3-4 defense. When I was first started coaching, we used to call this a 52. But they changed it. They backed these guys up out here and made them linebackers. And this is the old 52, but now it's called a 3-4 defense. And the personnel is a little bit different. All right? So, on a 3-4 defense, 3-4. 3 means I've got 3 down linemen. So, put an offense back up here. We're going to get to a spread. I've got a defensive end. I got a defensive end. And I got a nose tackle, or a defensive tackle, defensive nose. That guy lines up on the center. Now, there's terminology for the center. A shade, 0, all right? The middle linebackers usually give him a call which way if they want him to shade one side or the other. He's got to be a disruptor. He's got to make 2 people block him in this scheme. That's why Alabama's so successful. They get those big old nose tackles in there, and nobody can move them out of the way. This year, Tennessee's went to a big one. They got cats about 6'6", 375 pounds. But teams, if they're running the football, this is good to have them in there. Kind of plug up, because he has both A gaps in that scenario. You have a linebacker here, a linebacker, a stand-up guy on the outside, stand-up guy on the outside. Now, these guys can bump and help in coverage or help in covering somebody. You still have 4 secondary guys. And the coverage could be a cover 2, or it could be a cover 3, cover 4, and there's all kinds of different combinations. If you hear 0 coverage, what they got then, they got a man-to-man, and that means that there's no help. No help. They're going to cover all 5 eligible receivers. That's one thing I forgot to mention. There are 5 eligible receivers at the snap of the ball. At the snap of the ball. And if you're going to play cover 0, you're going to have a man on every one of those guys. And then you're going to have 6 guys that are going to be putting pressure on the quarterback. And usually one of those 6 is going to spy the quarterback in case he tries to run, especially if he's a running quarterback. So in this scenario, you go back to gaps again. A gaps, all right, for that defensive tackle. You got the B gap. That linebacker's got it. Linebacker's got the B gap. Defensive ends, C gap. C gap, outside linebackers, D gap. Same number of personnel. You got 7 guys up front, just like we did in the other defense, but we have them in a different location. A lot of people refer this to an odd man front. If they say odd man front, that means the center is usually covered. An even man front means there's usually 4 guys and the center is not covered. All right? This is a 3-4, so it's an odd man front, so the center is going to be covered. Now, you can take and put this guy on a 4 technique. That means he's head up, and he can slide to the inside to cover the B gap. And this linebacker will scrape, what we call scrape, off his backside to cover the C gap. Now, their objective is to keep these guys off the linebackers. If they do that, then your linebackers will make a lot of tackles. So if I cover up the tackle, the nose covers up the guard in the center of this side, then nobody's there to block the linebacker, except if they have 2 guys in the backfield, then the fullback would be able to pick him up. Then it's man-on-man football. Who's going to win? That's what you got to get to. All right. Basically, that's defense in a nutshell. All right, let's talk a little bit about special teams. I'm going to tell you about a couple things that you may not know. Again, ladies, You can go get you a dinner from your husbands on this one. There's a thing that called first touch. First touch on a punt. You have an offensive team who's punting the ball. You have a punt return team on the field. First touch means this. You have the punt teams going down, and the ball touches the punt team first. It may hit off their shoulder, headgear, or a guy may touch it with his hand. He doesn't down the ball. He doesn't keep the ball still. He just first touch it. Here's what could happen. The punt return team could go pick that ball up and go run down the field 10 or 15 yards and could fumble the ball. The punt team return it, but the punt return team could always come back to the point in which there was first touching took place, as long as there wasn't a penalty on that play. So basically, there's not any, if they've touched it first, the punt return team, as long as you don't have a penalty, you don't have to worry about losing the football. You can pick it up and run with it and go, and you may score. Then again, you may not. But you can always choose to come back to where they first touched it, and that's where you'd take possession of the ball. So, punt return, again, you got 11 guys. A lot of those guys play defense, but then it could be new personnel. You may try to block the ball on the punt. Big turnover point in the game. If that's the case, you're going to usually put more people at the line of scrimmage. The next one I'll tell you about on special teams is a free kick. Free kick, I've done it one time in 25 years of coaching. But this happens usually right before halftime. If you have your opponents pinned up against their goal line, say the 3, 5, 4 yard line, something like that, and it becomes fourth down, you take a timeout, you tell the referee, we want a free kick. That means that you have to fair catch the football. He punts the ball, you fair catch it. If you catch it on their 35-yard line, you get to line up in a kickoff formation. They have to put their guys 10 yards away from you, and your kicker can kick it through the uprights for a 3-point play. That's called a free kick. Again, I've done that play one time in 25. We didn't make the field goal, but we would have got 3 points on that particular play. And you would do that play if it's right before halftime or even at the end of the game in a tie game or a close game. Thank you for joining me through our 3 shows that we presented for Football 101. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions, send me an email at jackd@wcs.edu, and I'll be glad to talk to you and try to explain some of the things I've talked about. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been Williamson County Sports Connection.
It up.
He's got pace. He's got pace. That's 6. That's a touchdown.
Trying to get some momentum going here early, and there's the inaugural kickoff, and there's going to be a break right there. Phillips Jerry, if he can find the speed, he's going to take it to the house. And welcome to football, Summit High School touchdown. There's more, and he has got a first down and more.
He's gone. That's it. Over. Touchdown. That man is sick.